Chinese and Japanese military aircraft have entered one of their most serious confrontations in years, following two radar illumination incidents reported near Japan's Okinawa Islands. The Japanese government says Chinese fighter jets directed their radar at Japanese military aircraft on Saturday, prompting an immediate diplomatic protest and raising concerns among regional partners. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi said the radar actions posed unnecessary risk to flight safety. She told reporters that these radar illuminations are a dangerous act that went beyond what is necessary for the safe flight of aircraft, describing the events as extremely regrettable. Japan says the incidents occurred as Chinese J-15 fighter jets operated near disputed airspace east of the Miyako Strait. The Japanese Ministry of Defense said the J-15 jets launched from the Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning targeted Japanese aircraft on two separate occasions. The ministry did not disclose whether the Chinese pilots locked onto Japanese planes or what evasive measures, if any, were taken. Japan responded by scrambling F-15 fighters to monitor the Chinese carrier group, which included 3 accompanying missile destroyers maneuvering south of Okinawa. Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi said Japan intends to maintain consistent discipline in its regional posture. Standing alongside his Australian counterpart in Tokyo, he stated that Japan would respond resolutely and calmly to China's conduct to preserve regional peace and stability. Australia has also addressed the situation. After meeting Koizumi, Australian Defence Minister Richard Marles said the developments were alarming. He told reporters, "We are deeply concerned by the actions of China in the last 24 hours. We will continue to work with Japan and stand with Japan in upholding that rules-based order." China has rejected Japan's account of the incident. Colonel Wang Shuemeng, spokesperson for the Chinese Navy, said Japanese aircraft disrupted routine Chinese training operations. According to Wang, the Chinese Navy was conducting pre-announced carrier-based flight training east of the Miyako Strait when Japanese aircraft repeatedly approached the area. In a statement issued on official social media channels, Wang said Japan's account was inaccurate and escalatory. He stated, "We solemnly demand that the Japanese side immediately stop slandering and smearing and strictly restrain frontline actions." He added that the Chinese Navy will take necessary measures in accordance with the law to resolutely safeguard its own security and legitimate rights and interests. The radar illumination episodes occurred as China-Japan tensions have sharply risen over Taiwan. Over the past month, relations worsened after Prime Minister Takaichi warned that Japan could respond to any Chinese military action against Taiwan if such action threatened Japan's national security. Taiwan lies about 110 kilometers from Japan's westernmost island, Yonaguni, placing Japanese territory close to potential conflict scenarios. Directing radar at another aircraft is regarded by military analysts as a threatening act. Illumination indicates the potential for a hostile engagement and can trigger defensive maneuvers. Although Japan has previously recorded similar incidents, including one in 2013 when a Chinese vessel locked its radar on a Japanese destroyer, the government says the latest encounters represent one of the most serious situations in recent years. China and Japan also dispute ownership of islands north of Taiwan, adding another layer of complexity to air and maritime interactions in the region. Beijing's position is that its forces were operating legally within areas under Chinese jurisdiction. Japan maintains that its aircraft were executing legitimate monitoring operations in international airspace. The diplomatic tensions are unfolding alongside growing military activity in East Asia. At one point on Thursday, more than 100 Chinese naval and Coast Guard vessels were reported deployed across regional waters. Taiwan's government described this buildup as destabilizing and a potential threat to the Indo-Pacific region. Taiwan's Coast Guard said it was monitoring exercises conducted by 3 Chinese maritime safety ships on the western side of the Taiwan Strait's median line. The Coast Guard said the situation remained normal, but accused China of using misleading and false wording to characterize its activities in a way that harasses Taiwan and contributes to psychological pressure. Chinese state media said the drills involved search and rescue operations in central waters of the strait, focusing on high-traffic areas and locations with frequent maritime incidents. The dispute over the strait is long-standing. China says it alone exercises sovereignty and jurisdiction over the waterway. The United States and Taiwan maintain that the Taiwan Strait is an international waterway used by roughly half of the world's container ships. While regional allies have issued statements of support, the United States government has remained largely silent at the leadership level. U.S. Ambassador to Japan George Glass has posted messages backing Japan since the dispute began. But President Donald Trump and other senior U.S. officials have not publicly commented. The U.S. State Department and the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo did not immediately respond to requests for comment on the radar incidents. Last week, the Trump administration released a strategic document stressing the need to prevent conflict with China in the South China Sea and around Taiwan by building up U.S. and allied military capabilities. The document frames deterrence as central to avoiding escalation while maintaining regional stability. The report follows private diplomatic exchanges. According to sources familiar with the discussions, President Trump telephoned Prime Minister Takaichi last month, urging her not to escalate tensions. That call reportedly came after Trump spoke with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who emphasized that Taiwan's return to China remains central to Beijing's vision of the world order. The official Xinhua news agency reported Xi's remarks following that conversation. Japan's report on the radar incidents lists the Liaoning carrier group as the launch point for the J-15 fighters. Japanese radar tracked the flight operations, prompting the scramble of Japan Air Self-Defense Force F-15 seconds. Japan has increased its monitoring of Chinese military movements in recent years, citing a steady rise in air and maritime operations near its territory. Historical patterns show periodic confrontations between Chinese and Japanese aircraft. In 2016, China accused Japanese jets of training their radar on Chinese fighters, while Japan said Chinese jets flew dangerously close to a Japanese patrol aircraft earlier this year. The newest incidents appear to reflect escalating assertiveness by both sides amid broader strategic shifts in the region. The rise in military activity coincides with domestic political developments. Beijing has advised Chinese citizens not to travel to Japan, citing deteriorating bilateral relations. China also paused plans to resume seafood imports from Japan. Those imports were suspended after Japan released treated water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear facility, a move that drew strong objections from China. The broader strategic competition between China and Japan intersects with Taiwan's security environment. Taiwan's government says it views recent Chinese maritime deployments as part of a sustained campaign to pressure the island militarily, politically and psychologically. Japan, meanwhile, hosts the largest concentration of U.S. military assets overseas, including aircraft, warships and thousands of U.S. Marines based in Okinawa. The presence is seen as a key component of regional deterrence. The United States has long stated that its alliance with Japan is central to its Indo-Pacific security strategy. Despite the severity of the latest incidents, Chinese and Japanese accounts remain sharply divided, with both sides accusing the other of unsafe behavior. Japan's government has formally protested and says it will continue assessing China's actions. China insists its operations were routine and lawful, and it warns Japan against what it calls slander and interference. At the same time, Taiwan continues to monitor Chinese drills in the strait while preparing for extended pressure across multiple domains. The government in Taipei says it views China's increased activity as part of a long-term strategy to assert dominance over the region. The situation remains fluid. Military analysts note that radar illumination scenarios carry inherent risks because misinterpretation or rapid escalation could trigger unintended consequences. However, neither Japan nor China has indicated a willingness to de-escalate publicly. As Japan, China, Taiwan and Australia issue statements grounded in their respective security priorities, the United States' relative silence adds uncertainty to how the dispute may evolve. Trump is expected to visit Beijing next year for trade discussions, and his administration has emphasized avoiding direct conflict while strengthening deterrence. For now, both governments are maintaining their positions. Japan says its aircraft were conducting lawful monitoring operations. China says Japan interfered with routine training. Each side is calling on the other to change course. The incidents near Okinawa underline the fragile military balance in the region and highlight the rising frequency of encounters involving major powers in contested airspace and maritime zones. The situation now stands as one of the most serious China-Japan military confrontations in years, with both sides reinforcing their positions as regional tensions continue to escalate.